Welcome to Oddball Preps. Today we're talking about essential fishing gear for the Bugout bag, particularly for absolute 101ers and total newbies. And maybe you real fishermen should jump over to the Bass Geek channel for a little while, but maybe stick around for information on the $100 Amazon monthly giveaway. So let's go. Now, most decent or even half-assed fishermen I know of would never be caught dead without a full set of gear for a bugout scenario. And personally, I agree, because as we see in this set of images, a rod and reel combo weighs quite a bit less than a single can of delicious Texas brand chili. The old Chinese saying goes, give a man a can of Texas style chili and he can eat for a day. Give a man a rod and reel and some gear and he won't need a can of chili or something like that. So I packed a collapsible rod and an old Zebco spin cast reel that can take a real beating in a pack. This is an Eagle Claw 5.5 foot, kind of a medium action rod. It's actually a nice feel to it. Handle's a little bit cheap, but for 16 bucks Amazon, I like. By the way, Eagle Claw's a 90-year-old company in Denver. Excellent source for pretty good prices. So, you've got no fishing gear to your name and you like the idea of possibly not starving someday, so here's your ground level gear. The big four are hooks, fishing line, weights to keep a baited hook from floating, and swivels to prevent the line from twisting and breaking. These are the essentials for building a survival fishing system. I strongly suggest you shop at a sporting goods store rather than online unless you know exactly what you're after, and here's a great example why. I plopped down $5 Amazon, let's zoom on this, for this fantastic assortment of the world's tiniest fishing components. It's a nice little box, but primarily we're looking at, you see the size of my hand, and I have a small hand. We're looking at minuscule stuff. So if you can't see your product, you don't know what you're getting. Let's take a look at a couple of shots of this. These tiny hooks are eyeless, so you'd have to know your fishing knots, which is a definite thumbs down for a starving beginner. But I got my $5 worth. I needed some tackle for this rod and reel I bought from the same vendor. Alright, so the prepper's favorite kit is the famous Altoids tin. One I have has my choice of gear, which is still your big four, plus a pocket knife, and I laid a magnet in here with some glue to hold loose hooks, and I have a stringer and some extra rubber bands. Fantastic little kits, no space at all. So if you have one of these, and if you have one of these, see if you can get that in the shot, then you put together one of these. Simply wrap a line around a stick. Come back here. I use rubber bands to hold this thing in place, top and bottom, and this is actually a little foam earplug in the end to hold the hook, keep it sharp, and the earplug serves as a bobber with fairly lightweight bait on it. So anyway, that'll throw in the pack, fairly easy and very cheap. Next up, I'm going to back out just a little bit here. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. Alright, this is a do-it-yourself rod. Very same idea. Line wrapped around a tube. I took a piece of 3/4 inch PVC and simply wrapped some highway marking tape around it, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. You can buy caps for this stuff. Try to get it in focus here. You can buy the regular PVC caps. I just found a bottle cap from a hydrogen peroxide bottle, and I popped a hole in it for a little breather hole, because you're going to be putting wet gear in here most likely. Find something to cap that in, and of all things I found a cap, a snap cap, and it fits perfectly in here, and you use what you have, right? And the other reason for this hole up in the top is to use this as an emergency signal for aerial reconnaissance, because if you take 6 feet of paracord and an eye bolt and put this thing together, you'll be able to swing it in a 6-foot circle over your head, hopefully not knocking anybody out with you. But that's what the highway marking film is for. It'll be very, very visible, and you're not going to lose this thing in the bushes, that's for sure. So that's the DIY rod, and you can pimp it out as much as you want or go as basic as you like. Next up is the K-bar caster, and we're talking about the same concept, reel and some line wrapped around a handle basically. This thing's modeled after the World War II issue knives John Wayne used to run around with. It has a nice clip on the back to hold that line in place in a flat area so it doesn't roll around when you set it down. Top screws off, room for all your goodies inside, or even probably 2.5 ounces of Jack Daniels would go in there too. That would be the fisherman's choice. So that's the K-bar caster. And those are the 3 concepts for line on a handle. Next up is our bizarro 100-year-old invention known as the fishing yo-yo. These are spring-loaded autopilot fishing machines, and if we can get it in camera, we can see that these are not always legal, so check your local laws if you think about using them. The spring inside of here, I'm going to use one that won't gig me. Let's try this. The spring inside of here sets with a latch, and when something hits that line, it pulls it in. I have a little loop on top of this one. You can just throw it over a branch or a tree. And these are not legal in all states, so check your laws if you're thinking about buying a few of these. They're about $4 or $5 a piece. Not that big an investment, and more toy than a fishing item, but I've actually used them and they do work. They need a little WD-40 and they need some wax on this little feeder hole because it shreds this nylon line after a while. So too much fun with the yo-yos. Next up we have an even more involved item. This is the trot line. This is about 150 feet of heavy nylon cord with 25 individual drops. If I can get unraveled here. These can be taken off and stored separately with a hook system that's typically put right in here. But as far as a Bugout item, it's heavy. It actually represents 25 different fishing devices. You can cut this thing in half and place it different locations, cut it down even into more pieces. My big problem with trot lines is they stink like grandma's underwear after about 2 or 3 uses. As you see in this image, you would typically tie off your trot line to either a post or a tree or something on the shoreline and use a float at the other end. Now this is for people who can't access either side of the river or stream that you're on, or you don't have a boat, so you're throwing this thing out. You can use a float, and in the center it needs to be weighted down with something like a rock or a meatloaf. But at any rate, this is one of the simplest ways to get a line out. Any kind of float you can find laying about, 2-liter bottle, even 3 or 4 party balloons blown up will work for a float. Now, while we're talking about fishing-impaired, for the people who have an aversion to gigging a hook with live bait, whether it's a cricket or a worm or anything that screams, there's a variety of baits available in jars and little bags. I like the jars because they're reusable and they're heavy. This is a delicious garlic flavored power bait, bubblegum. These are floater baits. You won't gag yourself putting one of these on a hook, but if I open this bottle right now, I will gag myself because this stuff stinks, just as the fish like. So those are easy, very packable. And as far as touching fish, you should have a pair of fish gloves. Now these don't have the rubberized palms on them for grabbing the fish, but these are cut resistant, and I've tried them with a knife, and you cannot chop through these things, but I didn't give it the college effort really, because my hand was inside of it, but I did scratch around with this thing pretty well. A pair of these are nice, and they're also usable for just general warmth and carrying for wintertime purposes. They're very comfortable actually. And one more point I'd like to leave you with, as I enjoy my Dia de los Muertos iced Mexican coffee with chile powder, is that if you end up in an area with no bug out bag, no fishing equipment, but you can find an area that has been fished, if you look in the trees, look in the brush behind the shoreline, look in the water, you'll find all kinds of good stuff. I found this little crankbait last summer hanging in a tree down at the lake at Lady Bird in the middle of Austin, Texas, just waiting for me to come pluck it. So here's some ballpark pricing on the things we were looking at this evening. A few items we didn't touch on. I do want to mention the blue box at the bottom came from a Walmart pharmacy. It's a great little tackle box, so look in odd places for these things. And I suggest you pick up a case of Preparation H while you're at the pharmacy, and you'll be the only one in the block with this stuff at the end of days, right? So remember the big four. Remember to buy American products when you can, and have a little fun with this, because fishing may be one of the few pleasures you have in a grid down situation. So thanks for joining us today. If you enjoy the video, hit the like button, sub, and hit the bell for notifications on the $100 Amazon gift card giveaway monthly. We ship out two $50 cards with 2-day shipping. Woohoo! So thanks for joining, and remember to also get you a delicious can of Texas brand chili regardless.